The main goal is to be able to create an e-commerce store from scratch, from ideation to all the way to demand generation. So I'm gonna take you step by step through what I would define as the 5 stages of creating any e-commerce brand. The first one is you gotta find your niche. Find your niche. Next, build the brand. Third is gonna be create your creative assets. Number 4 is setting up your point of sale. And then lastly, it's gonna be demand generation. I'll briefly explain kung ano yung magiging parts of every step, no? So the first one, find your niche. Pag sinabing niche, how I would describe this is it's basically any concept or interest or maybe a cause that people believe in, no? So what are example of niches? So kaya sabihin natin, basketball is a niche. People who are interested in basketball, it's easier to sell to them kasi alam mo na what they're interested in. Another example of a niche is a cause that people believe in. So for example, if you're an advocate for animal rights, animal wellness, that's another huge niche. K-pop is a niche. Anime is a niche. So anything that, any interest or concept that kind of binds people together, that is what a niche is. So how do you exactly find your niche? To briefly explain that, it's all about researching ano yung mga niches that are in the market and then yung mga niches that you are personally interested in. That's one thing that entrepreneurs, a mistake that they make early on is choosing a niche that they're not really interested in. Hindi naman siya problema, no? It's not that big of a problem if the niche that you're operating in isn't something that you're super interested in, no? A lot of people say na when you're trying to think of marketing materials for your business, it's best to think of what your customers would think and not what you would think. Ang advantage lang is if you choose a niche that you're interested in and that you are a bit of an expert in, is that you are able to make decisions better and faster, and you can go way longer with this type of business. So remember, when you're creating any type of business, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So the longer that you can go, the higher your probability of surviving and of making a successful business. Alright? Why do we start with a niche, no? One of the mistakes na lagi ko nakikita sa mga taong nagtatry mag-start ng e-commerce business, most of the brands that I see, no, usually mga ano sila, streetwear brands or fashion brands, usually ang ginagawa lang nila is they create a logo, yung logo nila sobrang unrelated sa branding nila. Like I remember may isa akong client, pangalan nila, Not High Club. Their designs were okay, pero parang, what does that even mean, diba? Not High Club, ano ba yun? It's because parang yung logo nila is just text. So it doesn't make sense, diba? Like, how do you build a brand when you're doing that? Why is it that when you begin with a niche, it's way easier to create a brand? Because you're already starting from a point that people are already interested in. So for example, there's this brand in the US, they're called Kill Crew. Their main niche was all about combat sports. So people who are interested in combat sports, it's easier for them to buy your brand or to kind of associate themselves with your brand because they already associate themselves with that sport. So by creating a brand within that niche, people automatically have that mindset na, uy, gusto ko tong brand na to kasi gusto ko yung combat sports eh. It resonates with my interests. So yun, that's the importance of finding your niche. Second is building the brand. So how do you build the brand though? So you have to start with your niche. Once you find your niche, try to get in the mind of your ideal consumer profile eh. So sabihin natin, if somebody's interested in combat sports, for example, how you would research the type of brand to build is by looking at different Facebook groups maybe of combat sports. Looking at the different people there and medyo isa-stalk nyo sila eh. So you're gonna have to use your internet sleuthing skills to find out, okay, ano ba sila? So where are they interested? Where do they work out? Sino yung mga athletes that they respect and that they admire? Do they hang out on Facebook? Mas Instagram ba sila? Mas Shopee ba sila? Mas website ba sila? All of these things you can figure out just by looking at the social profiles of people within your niche. So that's kind of how you start building a brand, by researching your target market. Next, okay, create your creative assets. Usually, ito yung step na pag hindi ginawa ng mga entrepreneurs, medyo mas nahihirapan sila eh. I'm gonna give you guys a checklist of the types of creative assets that maybe majority of you guys will need, especially at the start. So ano ba yung mga types of creative assets na to, no? You have your logo, you have your website banners, your product images, your social media posts, etc., etc. Around 5 yung main categories of your creative assets, no? Ako, personally, how I like to do it is I build all of these creative assets at the start, and then pagdating ko sa step 4, which is setting up your point of sale. So pag sinabi pa lang point of sale, this means any platform or any place where your consumers or your customers will buy your product. So this can be Shopee, this can be TikTok Shop, this can be Lazada, this can be your website. Tapos maraming iba-ibang website builders like Shopify, Weebly, WordPress, some local counterparts like Prosperna, CocoCart I think is another one. Pero for this class, we're gonna talk about specifically Shopify. Okay sana yung Shopee, TikTok Shop, Lazada. Ang problem lang kasi is you need a business registration to get started with them. And usually based on my experience, it takes, kumbaga, a long amount of time. So I just kind of want to remove that aspect and focus on the things that will actually help you guys when it comes to running your own e-commerce business. No? So Shopify is what I would recommend most of all when you're creating your own website kasi their integrations with all the payment providers, their app store is gonna make your life so much easier. So that's the fourth step. And fifth, and basically kind of like the most important step is demand generation. So for this one, I'm gonna teach you guys specifically paid ads. Paid ads on Facebook and Instagram. So why here in the Philippines, Facebook is basically synonymous with the internet. Essentially everybody's on it. It's still the best place to advertise your product for any e-commerce business. Honestly, any business in general, Facebook ads is probably going to be one of your main drivers. Once we go through all of this, we'll have special topics on demand generation, other things that you can do with your point of sale. Basically, ano yan eh, yung tuturo ko sa inyo, parang mga tools yan. You can think of it as, pag tinuruan kayo ng paid ads, para kayo may screwdriver, pero you can't use a screwdriver for any problem. So dun papasok yung mga special topics natin, no? How to generate organic views, how do you do paid ads on other channels. The point of this is, para marami kayong tools in your tool set. When you're running a business kasi, you can't be super one-dimensional kasi it puts you at a disadvantage kapag ganun yung situation natin. For all of these sections din pala, we're gonna be using a lot of AI. So I'm gonna teach you guys how we can use AI to make these things so much easier, so much more efficient, and so much more effective. Before AI, no, when I was back in college, when we were doing this, it would take us maybe, I don't know, 1 whole year to go through all of this. And honestly, sobrang wala ka pang kikitain. I mean, ang yung demand generation na tinuro sa amin was basically nothing. And how we would try to sell was we would post on Ateneo Trade, mga Facebook groups, just so you guys know, no, sobrang old school na paraan nun na I would not recommend it anymore. Unless na lang siguro may binibenta kayong para ukay-ukay, your old stuff. That's kind of the best ways to sell through Facebook groups. Medyo ano kasi yung mga Facebook groups eh. They're very much parang lock-based. Kung sabi niya, post ka, kung wala, anong gagawin mo, di ba? Post ka na lang ulit. That's not very effective. When you're running paid ads, doon yung mafe-feel na, oh, ganito pala yung power ng technology, power of these things. Sa special topics natin, I'm gonna teach you guys how to run a giveaway. I want you guys to feel yung feeling of going viral eh. And the best way to do that is by doing a giveaway. Kasi magugulat kayo na parang, oh, what the hell? Ang daming sobrang likes, ang daming sobrang, ito yung parang sobrang hack na hindi tinuturo sa mga tao eh. How to run a proper giveaway. There are certain guidelines lang that you have to do when you're running a giveaway. One of the biggest ones, share ko lang, we'll discuss it more when we get to that part, is you have to make people share your post. That's like the most important part. Kasi if you don't, sobrang konti na yung mag-join. Parang one of your requirements is gonna be, okay, you have to share this post in order to be part of the raffle. Parang ganun. Nakakita na kasi ako ng isang company who didn't do that. So ang ginawa ko, sumali ako agad. Kasi alam kong walang sasali dun eh. So I did end up winning. So tama ako. So that was like 8K, so solid. So oh, gotcha. Hindi nyo alam yun ha. We'll go deeper naman into these things once we start. Alright?